Ready? Awesome. Well, Brett, it's awesome to have you on.
It's good to be here.
It's hard to rope you in.
I know. We got a lot. We've been working on this for a while. I apologize.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. And let's hear what you got going on. What do you do?
So I have a business called Renew Homes. We are anything home remodel, maintenance, just anything that has to do with a house, we can take care of it. Maintenance, repair, remodel, whatever it is. I got into that game because I was doing fix and flips for myself. So about 14 years ago, I started fixing and flipping properties and selling them. A few years, about 5 years into that, finding properties to flip, at least under the method that I was finding them at that time, started getting tough. And I started having people hit me up asking me to rehab their own projects. One of the first I had was some friends inherited their grandmother's home in the Avenues and asked me if I would rehab that for them.
So they could keep it in.
They wanted to keep it as a rental.
Rental?
Yeah, they wanted to keep it in the family, and he maybe even has aspirations to move into it down the road in the future or something. But so we did it really nice. But it was crazy at that time. I didn't know. I didn't even know how to charge for it, because I was used to just doing stuff for myself. And so through the process, my background was as in the construction industry. My father was an excavator. So I grew up running a skid steer when I was, 13, 14 years old. I learned how to run that in high school. I was running a backhoe and I loved the work ethic and stuff that my dad had. He was just that guy who, in the summertime, he would come home, he would roll in with his dump truck and backhoe on the trailer at 10 o'clock, and grab dinner. And that's what I grew up with, right? And so I was always around that. And obviously summer times and after school, sometimes I'd go help him when I was in, junior high and high school and whatnot. And honestly, I looked at that back then and I was like, not only the how hard he was working, I appreciate the work ethic, but just the time that he was putting into it, right? And then the other part of it was his body was just beat, always. He was just always, this hurt, that hurt. He about chopped his finger off and his, shutting the tailgate to his dump truck one day. Just his knees were bad because he always jumped off his dump truck, just all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah. And so I in my after high school, I was just kind of like, man, I don't want to do this same thing. I don't want to go down this road that he's on. And it wasn't necessarily the industry, it's just how he went about the industry.
Yeah. Well, right? So that's like a huge thing I'm tackling right now. So, I'm sure you see on social media, I'm always talking about like health and fitness and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you get a lot of flack from people saying, I work in construction. I don't need a gym. I don't need to do all that stuff. And it's, to me, it's not even really about a gym and going to the gym. It's about taking care of yourself. And most people, so when you say you work in construction, it's like, oh, get ready for back surgeries, get ready for shoulder surgeries, get ready for whatever, replacing your knees. Oh, have you had a back surgery yet? Like they say this stuff all the time. And it's more about knowing how to actually do the work and then focusing on taking care of yourself, because people don't do that in the construction industry. It's always about hard ass, like gotta put up the front, gotta always be hard working, and not like taking care of yourself takes a back burner. You know what I mean?
One of the things about the industry when you work with your hands in any manner, like I've got several employees now, for example, and they all have a very similar work ethic in the sense that they like getting out the door as early as they can in the morning. I hired an electrician on staff a couple years ago, and he just comes from the mindset of he's out the door at 6, right? And he works freaking hard. He does. He's one of my best employees. There's no question about it. And he works, he likes just getting out the door early, and, he puts in a long, hard day. And he likes having his evenings. He's big into playing softball and, wants to be around his family and stuff like that at night. So it's a little bit of that in this industry that I see is guys want to get up and they want to get their work done and they want to get out the door early. And so again, like my dad, if you need to, you can stay out, you know, especially in the summertime. It doesn't get dark till 9:30. He was working till 9:30, right? So it's what I see from what you're talking about is that's just kind of the mindset, is like, get out early. And my best times that for me in my schedule now of when I can get myself to the gym or take care of myself, it's better if I like, that's the first thing I do in the morning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to do that, you're like, if a guy wanted to go to the gym and he's going to kind of work that schedule, he got to get up at 4:30.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that's
It's
what
hard.
people run into. It's hard, and they can't balance that.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to balance. And so like you would hear people complain about time, you know, not having enough time to do it. And I heard that excuse most often when I was actually going to the gym in the morning. So right before COVID, for probably 2 years, a year and a half, it was every time I went to the gym, it was right when they opened at 5, like get my workout done, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And I got to be dressed and out the door because I got to be at work at like 6:15 or something. Like, and I'm looking at it like, well, how much time do you think it takes? You know? And I think it's just, it's a mental block, but like I say, it's not even about the gym necessarily. It's about getting rid of this stigma that like you always need to be this hard ass that doesn't need to take care of yourself and doesn't need, like, nobody learns how to use their body in the manner of construction. You just figure it out. And if you only ever do that and you're not going to the gym or working on making sure you're eating healthy, or like you're not doing all this other stuff to take care of yourself, it's understandable why so many people have all of these problems.
Yeah.
Because like I've seen it too. You know, my dad's uncles he worked for them when he was younger. So in concrete, they were broken down, and they've actually just both recently passed away. So his two uncles that he worked for, that he was super close with, they both recently passed away, and they were just broken down. And hearing stories about them back then, like they're really like these get after it, doesn't matter, like beat yourself up, whatever it takes type of personality. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a good benefit to that, having that idea. But you also need to take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, you get done with your career, and if you've lived like that for the whole time, you're broken down, and you do have problems with your body that you can't fix anymore, you know? So that's really where my podcast has taken a turn. Yeah. You know, I talk about the work because it's important, but like a lot of people just don't take care of themselves. Yeah. You know?
And it's a lifestyle of, people automatically think, oh, I'm because I'm working in a physical field, I'm taking care of myself.
Good,
I don't go to the gym, but I'm doing this, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I'm working with my body, so I'm burning calories. And there's to a certain extent that's true, right? But it also comes like, my dad, again, till he ended up having a health scare when I was, I don't know, late high school, I think it was. But I grew up, and he smoked and he drank, and that was his lifestyle also, right? He came home at 10 o'clock and he'd have a beer, you know, with the dinner that my mom had made a couple hours ago that was sitting there, and that was just kind of his lifestyle too. I think I only probably quote unquote saw my dad drunk a couple times in my life. You know, he was much more of just that's what he drank when he got home to settle down and chill out a little bit, and but it also caused problems, all those things. Again, he had this health scare where they were pretty sure he had cancer in his lungs. Again, this was, 30 years ago, whatever now, and he actually stopped all that stuff cold turkey at that point.
Oh, really?
They traced it back to jobs that he had done a demo job, I think, years and years ago, where it was something with asbestos had got in his lungs. But,
really?
Yeah, but at the time they were pretty sure it was cancer. So. Anyway, long story short, he stopped that stuff, but that was just kind of like everybody that I knew that he associated with, they kind of lived that same lifestyle when I was that age, right? Yeah. All of his buddies drank and smoked, and they were all worked with their hands all day long, and it was kind of a similar thing, right? Like this was just kind of the lifestyle. So, it's an entire lifestyle, like there's no other way to put it. But yeah, you wish people would just take care of themselves better. So.
Yeah, well, and so what I've talked about on a podcast that I just barely did, we were actually talking about how people don't take care of themselves because that immediate discomfort of, watching what you eat. let's say, or working out is not favorable compared to what you could be doing, which is just not caring. And the harm of not taking care of yourself is so far down the line that it's hard to see an immediate pressure. It's hard. So people wait until they have the health scare like that. Yeah. And then that's when they make the change. Yeah. If only they could take someone else's experience of doing that and then be like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself.
That's part of where I was. Again, watching my dad, watching his lifestyle, how he did, seeing his body, seeing the things he was putting into his body that weren't great, you know. Yeah. I didn't want that, you know, and so I did. There's a lot that I learned from my dad. There's a lot of traits that we all pick up that we wish maybe we wouldn't have from parents too, but those are some of the things I did. I tried to, you know, I've tried to emulate his work ethic as best I can. And, you know, I've tried to learn from some of the mistakes he made as well and to try not to do those things, right? But I think that it's critical that you are actually watching other people and trying to learn.
So we all learn from our mistakes, but what would it look like if we learned from other people's mistakes too? That was one of my things when I was, you know, training, learning, to do concrete. Like, I learned from other people's mistakes. Like, if someone else wasn't doing something right and it caused like a problem, which it can very fast, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Like, that's just the end of the day. I don't want to make the same one. And like, being conscious of that in the first place is important, because a lot of people are not aware of their own, let alone other people's.
Whether it's health, whether it's anything, like that's probably the biggest thing that I'm trying to get my crew. So I have 2 project managers that work for me, and I've tried to, over the last 2 to 3 years, I've tried to distance myself from the day-to-day of the remodel, to where I'm more kind of running the whole, right? And it's been a while. It's been a while since I've actually had to get my hands super dirty, other than the ink of a pen, right? And because I just got to this point where I couldn't keep up with everything and be at the job site all day long too, right? And so I would have all this office stuff, and so eventually I had to hire office staff to help me catch up with invoicing and all that kind of stuff. But like, you know, growing to that point. But when you bring these employees in, that's probably the hardest part for me, is like trying to get them to learn from other people's mistakes. If it comes, like, if it's a quality control thing, like, you know, we've done enough projects now that I would hope, I always say that I would hope that my guys really understand the level of quality that I demand, right? That I want the property to look like, if we do a remodel, it should look like a brand new Parade of Homes home, you know, when we're done. Like, maybe not all the fancy bells and whistles, but it should look like a brand new build, right? Shouldn't look like a remodel. It shouldn't look like you came in here and half the house looks like this and half looks like that. You know, it should all flow, and it should all look really, really good. Something that everybody would want to buy at that point, right? And so when I come in and I see stuff that I'm just like,
it's not good.
How, in what world did you think that looks good, right? Like, it doesn't. Like, I don't care who you are, that clearly doesn't look good. So like, that can't be the standard. And, you know, teaching them to, it's not just like learn from other mistakes, learn from what you did last time that didn't work, and who did it right and what did work, but just teaching them to like be willing. I love guys who have initiative and like want to learn. Like, my electrician, right, that I said, he came aboard as an electrician. He's now working. He's one of my 2 project managers, right? He just showed a work ethic and an attention to detail, and he took ownership of everything he was doing, right? And so he really cared. And so that's why he's moved into other positions, because he's like, he didn't want to just be an electrician. He wanted to do more and be more with his own life, which I appreciated that, right? But he has learned how to, we do a bunch of work for like property management companies as well, on the GC side. And so he's learned how to swap out a water heater. He's learned how to do plumbing repairs. Like, he's like, hey, I can Google, I can YouTube, and I can get answers to something I don't understand right away. But then I've got these other employees, these, 20 to 25-year-olds that like, guys, if you don't know, every we do quarterly meetings with all of them, and I'm like, guys, every single meeting, it's like the same thing. If you don't know, there's 3 ways: Google, YouTube, or just ask. Like, just if you're not sure how to do it, I love that you're taking the initiative to try to tackle that thing, right? But if you're unsure how to do it, it's just better to do one of those 3 things. It's okay.
Yeah.
Ask somebody that has done it before who can guide and direct you on that so that it gets done right. Because in this world, it costs us a lot more to have to go back, tear that out, and redo it because it looked like crap when you were done. Right?
Yeah.
So just do it right the first time and ask questions if you don't know how.
Ask questions. That's been, I mean, that's hard, People don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. So, and I know this from my own experience. It's like I don't necessarily like to ask questions either, and it's not necessarily beaten out of you in school and stuff, but being overly curious, it's almost not good. Like some people don't see it as good. Like, stop asking so many questions, like all that stuff. And
it's just nuts.
It's crazy because some people, we say there's no dumb questions, and I sometimes think there is dumb questions, but at the end of the day, people don't know what they don't know, and the only way to figure it out is like asking questions. So as long as people are still doing that, it's good.
And that's and like I said, looking it up on YouTube or Google is asking.
Yeah.
And that's a technology that we have in our hands. Like, I don't care if it's concrete industry, the remodel industry, landscape. It doesn't matter what your industry is. Somebody out there may be doing it in a way that's better than you, more efficient than you. They've got a cool new way to brush concrete to make it look cool. Whatever,
yeah,
right? Like, there's all kinds of stuff that could be out there. And if you're not willing to learn from other people, you are limiting yourself. You're limiting your potential. You're limiting your business, right? So it's you have to be willing to go out and get help. Like, that's, we off camera here, we've talked about how important I think coaching is, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the same thing and I didn't. This took me years, by the way. This took me years to understand. Coaching in general, I was just like, what? I haven't had a coach since I played sports in high school. Like, what is a coach? What does that mean, right? Yeah. And I was just like always so, I was bothered by it. I just kind of had this stigma with me as like, what is a coach? Like, I'm a grown freaking adult. I don't need a coach.
Which everybody does,
right?
Everybody has that.
And it's just like, once you realize what, it's typically paid, obviously. There's a lot of great people out there who just want to be mentors, and they're awesome, and if you can find somebody like that will give you advice for free and help you, like, take it. Mm-hmm. But it's also, when you invest in something, and when you invest in yourself and you're willing to put some dollars on the line for your own personal growth and for your business growth and whatever it is, like you're showing, you'll typically take those things a little bit more seriously, right? Mm-hmm. One of the first coach I ever hired, it was $10,000. It was a guy my business had, I'd gotten away from fix and flips and started as I said earlier, I started doing projects for other people, ended up getting my contractor's license through that process, and took on these property management companies that we do a lot of work with. And then I really wanted to get back into fix and flips. And I'd spent like 4 or 5 years totally away from those. I was just kind of building my GC business, doing stuff for other people and for these property management companies and so forth. And I just kept, like, that thing inside me was like, man, there's nothing more personally that gives me joy than, like, taking a piece of crap house and turning it into something beautiful, right? Like, I totally get geeked up for that. I'm passionate about it. It's super fun doing a project for, like a customer, or even so my family in my early 20s, we built houses for a little while too, and that's a cool process to see something come from a piece of dirt all the way up to getting a full-fledged house that somebody buys and moves into. It's a cool process, but I personally just get more enjoyment out of taking that dumpy house that's a hoarder house. It's no maintenance for years. Has all sorts of issues, and you make it beautiful that people want to buy or whatever. So I love that part. So I was doing all this stuff for other people and for other businesses, and it was going okay, and we were making our ends meet. But like, I just wanted to get back into that game that I had originally left the other industry I was in to do. And so I paid a coach. He was my first real estate mentor, somebody who had been there and done that. He was doing what I wanted to do, right? And yeah, 10 grand. He told me what the price was, and 10 grand's no, that's not pocket change. It certainly wasn't at that time, right? And so that was a hard decision, but I was like, he was great about it. He was probably one of my best coaches I've ever had, honestly. But like, he pretty much said, bro, you do what I say to do, and you will get that money back plus, And so I'm like, well, I mean, the way he's making it sound, obviously it might be worth this risk. And I can tell you that within 6 months, I made that money back tenfold, right? But at the time, that was super scary, right? But by reaching out, putting some money on the line that made me more serious and made me more committed, right? Certainly doing that was, a major game changer for me, right? Because I sought out the information from somebody who was where they were was where I wanted to be, right? And if you're not willing to reach out and go to those kind of people to get that help and that advice and that guidance and to learn the things that you don't know, right? Like, I mean, he taught me things I'd been around. I did fix and flips for like 5 years in the past, and he taught me things I had no idea, right? About and got me to do things that were stretch. They were out of my comfort zone, no doubt. Like one of the big things he told me to do was post a lot on social media, right? And admittedly, I'm too much of a consumer of social media sometimes, but like I don't like it doesn't matter what I post. If I post about my kids, if I post about my business somehow, if I post about me doing some activity with my family, like it doesn't matter. I get like serious anxiety inside me every time I post anything. I hate to do it, and yet that one thing that he had me do led me to a 6-figure return on an investment property that I never would have gotten had I not done the things he asked me to do. Yeah. And so it's seeking out knowledge from people who've done what you want to do, and again, being willing to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable at times and do things that you don't want to do to see the benefit in those things. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting of us to think that this coaching and self-development thing is new, because I mean, in the scale it's new, and the way that it's kind of being done right now, where so many people are using social media and so many people are paying for coaches. But if you think about human history, like really books and like religion, scriptures, I mean, all of that is a form of personal development, and coaching, really, on how to be people, on how to be better people. And it's taken an interesting spin lately. And I talk about this a lot because there's a lot of coaches out there that are trying to be coaches but don't have anything to show for it or prove about it. And it's interesting to see that, but I think it's still important. I think it is still important. There's a lot of people that are getting kind of disenfranchised, I guess, by the coaching space because there's so many people doing it. But there is a huge benefit still. And it comes from learning what other people did that did and didn't work. And how else are you supposed to know that without figuring it out? If you can pay someone 10 grand to help you avoid a $10,000 mistake, isn't that worth it in itself?
And doing your own due diligence on a coach even is super important, right?
Yeah.
Like, go get somebody has got some testimonials.
Yeah.
You'll go talk to, hey, this was one of their students. Go ask that student, hey, did you do this program? Did it work? Did you give it all the commitment that he asked of you? Because that's part of it too. Like, there's a lot of people, there's groups that you and I have been in that people get in and they didn't see results in week 1, and so they're like, well, this is not for me, I'm out, right? Like, you have to be willing to also do the things that are asked. So it's not just paying the money, It's being willing to do the things that they tell you to do.
I would,
a lot of people don't.
I would add there, it's not just paying the money if it's not very much of an investment. Because like if it's a lot of money to you, like you'll get in there and
you usually take it more serious.
You'll take it more serious. And it was always funny to me to see people in the Lions Den or any group really that's like $300 a month, and they get in there and they do nothing. They don't use it at all. Like, don't get on weekly calls, don't interact with people, don't mess, like nothing. And I'm like, yeah, people just want to feel like they're doing something.
Yeah.
They want to feel like it.
Yeah.
They're not actually doing it, because maybe that 300 for them isn't as much of an investment. So it's like they don't have as much on the line. It's just they're almost like paying to feel like they're doing something when they're not.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like so many people do that, and it's
a waste. It's a waste. Like once I had that first coach, and this is something you can get into real easy. Once I had that first coach and I saw what he did for me and the success, I started, after I kind of quote unquote graduated from his program, right? It wasn't one of these like lifelong renewal things. It was kind of a time period type deal, and I'm going to coach you for X amount of time. We're going to get you from this point to that point, and then you can always call me for advice and help and so forth down the road. But like the formal, weekly coaching of it will kind of be over. Well, once that ended and I was like, holy cow, this works. I feel like, he was still a great resource, to go to and ask advice on, hey, what do you think this property's worth? Or you think this is a good deal and stuff like that, to kind of help me get over the hump of starting to buy properties again as well. But again, the formal part was over, and I was like, holy cow, this works. I want to do more. So since that time, I've joined lots of different coaching groups, and some it's always about what you put back into them. There are some that admittedly I stay a member of simply for the networking aspect of it, right? And just kind of to be there, to hear about things that are happening, to be a resource if your particular service or industry comes up, in a need for somebody. You're just it's kind of there. But if you're not doing the weekly calls, if you're not doing the networking events, if you're not like posting on the, all these different groups seem to have their own, whether it's a Facebook group or they don't have their own platform or whatever. They all have something where you can interact with the community too, right?
Doing that,
and if you're not doing those things, again, the more you put in, the more you'll get back. And so, you can get into this thing where, man, I'm going to all these events, I'm doing all these things, but like you're spread too thin as well. We were talking about this a little bit off camera too. Like it's really easy to get into to where you're in a lot of these things and you see value in them, but you're spreading yourself thin and you don't have the time to put into these things, and then
to actually
they become a waste again.
You don't have time to give the benefit to or put in the work to get the benefit.
So if you're new to coach, I would recommend vet that coach, do your own due diligence, make sure that they work, but just go all in with that program, that system, give it everything, give it your full commitment and attention, and go for it. And then if that works for you and you want to pursue something different, because again, you can get coached, and I think it's important to get coached in all these things, right? Like, it's nice if you can find that quote unquote life coach who will help you with your business and your health and your relationships and your whether it's spirituality or whatever it is on top of that. All those things are important. But you can also get individualized coaches for each of those things. You can get a coach for the concrete industry. You can get a coach for, again, just specific fix and flips, or being a general contractor. There's coaches for all these different things as well.
And what I would almost say is probably one of the most important ones would be to get a fitness coach, which a lot of people don't want to do. And I never have, so I guess I can't speak to that, but I know how valuable that is. And if you don't know enough about what your body does, like your health and your fitness, like you probably should invest that money.
That's what I'm saying. So, that's massive as well. Like all these things are important, right? You better you better be focused on your relationships, right? Your marriage, if you're married, your partner, whatever your situation there is, but your relationships with your family, with your friends, like if you're not cultivating those and doing the right things to be a good husband, father, friend, whatever that is, that's just as important as your health, right? Because that'll have these other long-term ramifications too if you don't, right? So there's coaches in all these fields, and so it's like it's a caution of don't spread yourself too thin, but go all in on the thing that you really need the help with right now. And then if you can be involved with different groups and different coaches to specify on these things, that's if you can manage it, that's awesome too.
Yeah. How are you juggling all your family stuff going on right now? Your daughters
hard.
are like all over the place. And
it's hard. It's really hard. That's, to be honest with you, I've never done real well. Like the last person that I quote unquote worked for was probably my dad. I've never done well with somebody telling me where to be at this time, and like, you can't leave till this time, and no, you can't have that day off, and no, you can't go to your kids' basketball game at this time. I don't do very well with that. So I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit, right? I've always, since I again, in my very early 20s, was working with my dad a little bit, building houses, got away from that, was like, don't want to end up like my dad, so I'm going to get away from construction totally. And I actually went into financial services for 13 years, which was good. I learned a ton, and actually there's a lot of that stuff that helped me of where I'm at today. But there was aspects of it that I hated as well, and I was just drawn to real estate, so eventually I got back into it. But I can't, what the heck were we talking about?
How do you juggling all your
okay.
all your
so that
stuff.
Thank you. So juggling it, that's what I'm talking about. Like I seek freedom. Right. I seek freedom way more than I do security sometimes. I want to make my own schedule. And that means, especially as a business owner, that means I'm at my desk at 9-10 o'clock at night a lot, because my kids, I have 4 daughters. They're amazing. They've all played golf and basketball and soccer and softball and lots of other stuff, right? And if I want to go spend my day for 4 or 5 hours watching my girls play in a golf tournament, right, then that means there's stuff that I'm not getting done. Now, my wife would get mad at me a lot if I'm at something because I'm sitting there on my phone, texting, or have to walk away for a second to take this call. And so you manage that during it, but it also just means there's stuff that's not getting done right there that still has to get done today. So if you want that freedom of schedule, that means that, okay, I got home from the golf tournament at 6. That means I'm down in my office working for a few hours to get stuff done still. But I love that. I love having that freedom to my girl's got a basketball game at 3:30 at the high school. Cool. I can run over there and watch that.
I think there's a little bit of depending on who you're working for, there's a little bit of leeway you can have there, because if it's super important to you to be able to do stuff like that, and okay, well, I need to leave at this time, or I need to take this day off, it's important to find someone, if you are working for somebody, to find somebody that you can do that for.
And I give my employees a lot of leeway, and I trust them, and I've asked them I said, I'm going to trust you, and don't give me any reason not to trust you, right? And as long as you, for me, I tell them all, you put your 40 in, I don't care. We've got so much work, I need 40 hours from you, right? I need 40 solid hours.
Don't care when it is?
I don't care when that 40 is. Give me 40 every week, right? That's what I can, legally ask of you, and so that's what we're asking. Give me your 40. So a lot of my guys have turned to 410s now. We kind of started on it because we had some projects that were 45 minutes to an hour away from kind of our home base. And to us, it made more sense to hey, if you're driving that far, let's do it 4 days a week instead of 5. Right.
And it's put just in a little bit more work.
So when you're there, if you're, let's say 2 hours of your 8 are burned on driving, you're only at the property for 6. Well, that sucks. I want you there, giving it as much time as you can. So if you want to leave the house at 6, so you can be home by whatever time, if it's an 8-hour day, or if you want to work a 10, and then they're actually loving it, because now they got their Friday or their whole weekend off. You know what I mean? So now they got a 3-day weekend every week. So and that's fine with me. I don't care. Now my project managers and me, even if so my project managers, both, they can, as long as they're in, working with their hands on something, we'll pay them an hourly wage for that. But they get bonuses and so forth for anything that they're managing over and above, right? So some of that entails that if they put their 40 in by Thursday, on Friday and even on Saturday still, that might mean that it's just kind of the role, right? That you might have to field some phone calls or reply to some texts or whatever that is, on those days. But for the rest of the crew, they've got that time off and they love that.
Yeah.
And
well, that's an awesome thing to offer. And it's hard to find of an employer to do that.
Yeah.
But I think you can almost get that of any employer because it just takes a conversation.
Yeah. You just have to ask. It
takes asking. It takes sitting down and saying, okay, this is what's important to me. I want to be able to do this. What do you think? And then they're like, okay, no, we can do this and this, but I need you to do, whatever it is. And it's a, when you work for someone, it's an agreement. It's not a, they have all the power, but everybody thinks it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm always like I want my employees to love working here. They're not only compensated to a level that they're happy with, but they know that they have room for growth. They know that we're going to help them become better people, but that they are in an environment that my 2 PMs, for example, the one's super big into softball, and he goes out of town on weekends a lot for softball tournaments, right? And he busts his can. If he's going to, sometimes he has to take off on a Wednesday night or a Thursday morning to fly somewhere for wherever his team's playing, right? Because they do a lot of stuff out of state. And I'm like, cool. He busts his can Monday through Wednesday.
So you're fine with
to get his time in so that he can, that's great with me.
Yep.
This, we just kind of went through this where in this industry, there's a lot of people who hunt.
Yeah.
Right. And that's always a hard time for me because, I've got guys that hey, I'm taking off this entire week for the hunt. And I do the same thing. I tell my guys, hey, give me plenty of notice and I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
It just, as long as I know what's coming, we can make plans, we can delegate,
but it can't be it can't be
hit on me last minute.
No,
right?
It can't be a Friday. Be like, hey, next week I gotta go.
So all of them, they know. Just give me some notice.
Yeah.
I put it in my calendar. As I open my Google Calendar every day, I can see. I put it in a color in my Google Calendar that so and so's out of town this week, right?
Yeah.
And I can see that that's coming up, a couple weeks out. And again, you're starting to make those plans for that. As that's coming, but I don't care. Be in an environment where you feel again, some of my employees, a couple of them have young kids, and hey, my kid's sick today. This sucks. I've got to take off a little bit early to take him to the doctor or be there so that my wife has errands or whatever it is, right? And cool, get your 40 in.
Yeah,
I don't care. You figure it out. If that happens to one of my PMs, it's cool because they've always got a lot of office work they kind of have been tasked with as well. So, hey, great. Can you utilize some of that time at home to catch up on some of this stuff while your kid's sleeping or whatever, right? But it doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're fair to me, I will be extremely fair with you.
Yep.
Right? So,
because it's a give and take. It's you're doing an agreement. It's a contract.
Right.
Between two people, not one party dictates everything. And I feel like that's what a lot of people think being an employee is, because there is a certain level of, you have to do what your employer says to get paid because you're working for them. But also if they're not being fair with you, you don't have to keep working for them. But so many people just get sucked into this thing where it's not I don't know if they think that they're not going to be able to find something better or if they don't think they have the ability, but it literally is just talking about it in a conversation. And the conversation is the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's hard to bring that up and because they don't want to rub anybody wrong. You don't want to act like you're being greedy and a lot of people subconsciously maybe think that they don't deserve to be able to do those things.
Yeah. I hope that my employees too, I hope they have the sense that they can come talk to me with whatever happens.
Well, and that's another thing if it's you don't feel like you can. That's another thing too.
Yeah, and I hope that we've created that culture with them, but like I want them, if I've told them all, hey, look, like every 6 months to a year, you probably deserve some sort of a wage increase, and we'll evaluate that, annually and semi-annually. So if I forget that, hey, it's been 6 months since we talked last,
just say something
and
about
did
it.
a little evaluation, like say something to me, because I got a lot going, and I'm trying to do stuff with my office staff and stuff for them to like have it pop up on their computers that, hey, so and so started 2 years ago in December, right? Whatever it is, so that we can be a little bit more proactive on that too. But like I've told them, it doesn't matter what it is. Like if you feel like, hey, you're doing great work and all that kind of stuff, come talk to me. Let's have that conversation. If you're feeling like, you're underpaid at this point for any reason, like I'm cool. So come talk to me. I've got to manage the business and keep it in a manner that makes sense to have the labor rates we have. But I'm also totally great with compensating somebody for good work, for loyalty, for getting better at their job.
Yeah.
Right. Like if in the beginning we were having to have quality control reviews with you all the time,
And now you don't.
and now it's like, dude, you're crushing. Like that. Remember how we were talking to you like every couple days about this doesn't look good or that's not right, or we're not doing that anymore. You deserve more money now, because for me, it's better because I can trust that this person, I can send a guy to go to one house, like take off. He doesn't need a babysitter anymore, right? He doesn't need that me or one of the PMs standing over his shoulder to make sure he does it right. I can trust that I can say, hey, go to that house and this is what you're going to do. Here's the scope. Here's the task list. Go knock that out yourself. And I'm not going to show up later, or the PM's not going to show up later, or if it's a customer job, they're not going to show up later and be like, what the crap's this?
Yeah.
This looks terrible, or whatever. So those are the guys I want to compensate better.
Yeah. Well, so if you're listening to this and you're working for somebody and you're in this situation, it's like a lot of this has to come down with the trust between your employer and you. And if you're not giving reasons to build that trust, like it's always if you show up late once a week even, or if you aren't like, and you don't have some like crappy excuse, you're not performing the way you should. You're always like, there's always problems that you're leaving behind. Like either way, this is something that you need to look at in your life and come to an agreement with yourself about fixing that. Because there's no way you can get compensated more, have your employer trust you, have more responsibility if you aren't doing what you need to be. Yeah.
It's, being a business owner is it's not fun all the time. It's not easy. It's rewarding in a lot of ways. Again, it gives me flexibility and freedom of time and honestly uncapped income potential and all these great things that you can have from being a business owner. But managing employees is really hard too. And weeding through people to find good people is just part of the game a little bit. Like, everybody has those days that, man, I woke up and I feel like crap. I there's no way I can come do that today. And I get that, but it's those guys that you find that happens way too often, and that becomes, to me, now all of a sudden, it's, you start having trust issues. Are they really sick, or they just got something else going?
So this is something that like a lot of people don't have it figured out, and we certainly don't, but like, if you have someone that's doing that all the time, it just means they're not taking care of themselves. And it's
could
like, at the end of the day, they have problems and they're not getting them solved. Whether it's pre-existing health conditions, whether it's not eating the right foods, not taking care, whatever it is, like they're doing something that is not beneficial to their body, that's making them not be able to be reliable. Because I've never even called in sick, which I don't mean to really say that to brag, but like I just take care of myself, and
that's a part of this industry that a lot of guys just kind of have that. Especially this guy I was telling you about, like he had a health scare. He went into the hospital for like a week because he's diabetic, and he wasn't taking care of himself by giving him his insulin and stuff that he was supposed to be taking. And you know, but he's just one of those guys. Again, he wants to get up early. He wants to bust his butt all day long. That's just his mentality, and you love that. Yeah. And he's typically like, he was forced to go into the hospital. Yeah. He was at the hospital. He didn't want me or anybody else to even go visit him because he was embarrassed that he was in the hospital, right? He's just like, I don't want to be here. But they, like, his levels and all this were so out of whack because he wasn't taking care of himself that's the position he put himself in. So you love the mentality, right, of somebody who's like willing to, I don't feel very good, but there's no excuses, right? Yeah. I'm going to put my time in today. Yeah. So you love that mentality, but it's got to be a balance of also caring for yourself, or you do end up in the hospital, or you do, again, it's either a character issue, right, where maybe they're not completely truthful, and who knows what they're doing when they say they don't feel good today,
or they're just not
taking care of themselves.
Which both of them is bad. Yeah, it's not, and this is something that it just is interesting that people like to live like that. You know, I don't know how you can have a commitment to something and then not live up to the commitment and not really feel bad about it either. Yeah. Just always being calling in sick and stuff. I'm like, to me, knowing that I don't, and knowing how much work I put in to take care of myself, it's like, well, I mean, at what point do you start putting work into yourself to not do this anymore? Yeah. At what point do you respect yourself enough to live up to what you say you're going to do and not, last minute call in sick to work? Yeah. So, and again, there's things, there's a give and take everywhere. If it doesn't happen all the time, obviously they're getting sick and it doesn't always have to be because they're not taking care of themselves, because people, sicknesses go around. It is what it is. But if it's constantly, then it's definitely a lifestyle problem, something that needs to be visited, but people don't think about it like that. They're kind of just thinking about it as like something that's happening to them as opposed to something they're doing to themselves. Yeah. Which is usually what it is.
And I love those guys with the mentality of, hey, I didn't get my 40 in because I felt sick on Wednesday. So, hey, are you cool if I work extra time on Thursday and Friday to make it up? Are you cool if I put in some hours Saturday? Yeah. And again, I already said that. Like, I want that mentality. But it's, it's the guys, if you're out there listening and you work for somebody else and you're that guy who goes to your boss saying you need more money, but
you don't want to
you don't put a full 40 in. Yeah. Like, that's a mind blower to me. Yeah. Right. Oh, we need more money for our apartment, or we want to buy a house, or so can I get a raise because I need more money to do this or that,
without first putting that work in
exactly
yourself.
That's when I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if you're deserving of that right now, because your pattern hasn't been such that you're providing me the value that I need to see, right? Yeah. And that's what this is always all about. And it doesn't matter, like, if you're in the service industry, you're providing value to somebody else. If you're an employee, you better be providing value to that employer. Yeah. Right? And if you provide value to that employer, right, you're making them money. They will reward you. They should reward you. I do, right? Like, if you're taking things off of my plate and making my life easier, if you're making my business money from doing a good work, or you did such good work. I mean, that's the best. You did such good work that we got referred to somebody else because of your work. Well, you just got us a new job just because you take your job seriously. Yep. You're providing me value. Yep. You should be compensated accordingly, right? So if you're out there working for somebody else, like, what can I do to provide my employer with more value? Yeah. Whatever that is. If I can come up with ways, and it's not just the time you put in and how hard you work when you're there. It can be innovative, right? Like, get on YouTube, get on Google.
Yeah, learn.
Take some ownership of skills. your particular job.
What are you doing outside of your job to be able to provide more value?
To be better, right? Hey, I found, how we did this. I'm just trying to think of an example. When we trimmed out this closet with the shelving and all this stuff on this house. Well, I was watching this YouTube video yesterday where this is how these guys did it. Take a look at this. You think we can try the next one like this? And I'm like, awesome.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the stuff that I'm talking about. Like, find ways to provide value. Find ways to whether it's doing your job better, being more efficient, finding a neat, cool way to do something that looks even better.
Taking care of yourself.
Being reliable.
Reliable.
Right?
Yeah.
Like all those things are ways you can provide value. And so do those things. And if you're not working for somebody who does reward you for doing that, then find a better place to
because it is an agreement. And if they don't want to, compensate you for either going above your agreement or like really putting effort in, then I mean, you probably should go somewhere else. Because I mean, that's the real challenge of business owners, is knowing when exactly to compensate employees for what they do, And a lot of times, a lot of these guys don't know how to do it, and it just takes a talking to. Like, hey, I feel like I put a lot of work in, or you could even go ask, like, what do I need to do to make more money? What do I need to do for you to get a raise?
Right. And I love that too. Again, I've had a couple employees come to me with, hey, should we go to this other company and try to get their work? Should we, so-and-so, like my employees now are like bringing jobs to us, right? Like, hey, and I don't do a lot of like basements. Again, it's one of those things, it's cool, but like, I don't get a lot of joy out of finishing a basement for somebody. So we very, very rarely do that. But I've had a couple employees bring us, hey, got a friend who needs their basement finished, and can we do it for them? And it's like, well, they're your friend, and customer jobs are hard. Like they're just a whole nother bag of worms that you're opening up, right? And so I take those very, very sparingly.
Community, so only people in there will see it. But where do they go to find you?
Yeah, find me on social media. My Instagram account is at @TheRealBrettJ. The Real Brett J. Just something stupid that I came up with years ago, and I was getting social media accounts, and everybody said the real official or whatever, and it was just funny to me, right? So that's my Instagram handle. That's probably the best place, is because I post a lot of stuff that we're doing there. I post about our meetup that we do. We have a free real estate meetup, and again, we want to come to that meetup. It's just, all you have to do is be interested in real estate in any capacity. And that could be as a contractor, by the way. You could come there as, hey, I'm somebody who provides a service in this area, concrete guys, painters, HVAC, like any sub who works on a house. We want, not just are you welcome, but we want you to come to this, because I found some of my best subs through meetups just like this. So we want you to come and connect with other investors, other people who own flips, rentals, their own properties, whatever, and they need work on those things, right? So those are the people we want there. But if you're listening to this and you are already in the real estate world, you could be a lender, you could already be an investor, you could be a title person, you could be somebody who lends money. Like there's all kinds of ways to be, again, involved in real estate. So we want those people there, right? And then you could be that total newbie. You're just like, I've never done this. I want to own rentals. I want to own short-term rentals. I want to own Airbnbs. I want to own fix and flips. I want to get into owning apartment complexes. It doesn't matter. We've got all those people in the room. So the meetup is called Real Estate Connections, Recon for short, right? We call it Recon because it speaks to the power of networking, right? And this is something that I struggled with for years. Like I am an introvert. I don't like going to meet people, and I stay away from that stuff, but this stuff flipping works. And that mentor I had, this is another thing. He's like, you're going to start going to stuff like this. And I was like, no, that sounds way out of my comfort zone.
Good.
Right? But he's like, you're going. And I've seen, because again, my business has exploded since I've been willing to do stuff like this. So you could be a newbie, never done it, and you're just interested in some aspect of real estate, and you're invited. So come to our real estate meetups. Find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well, obviously, as Brett Johnson there. But finding me through social and meetups and stuff like that is probably the best way to contact me.
Awesome. Well, awesome. It was great to have you on.
Good. It was fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully there was some value that we provided.
Bunch of value. I hope people enjoyed it. Hope people implement it.
Yep. Awesome.